Hello everyone, this is Shannon here, and I am going to be putting together a spread for my Life Crafted album today. I've already printed out my pictures here. These are 2x2 squares, and then as you can see, I already have my journaling printed. I opted to type it out instead of handwrite it so I could have it exactly where I wanted on the page, and since I have quite a bit to say, I wanted to make sure it all fit into that space. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and use some of the new products that hit the Citrus Twist store this month in December 2020. So I have the Maggie Holmes Sweet Story 6x8 paper pad, as well as the Maggie Holmes Marigold 6x8 paper pad. And I've already gone ahead and pulled out a couple papers I think I want to use from both of those pads. And then I have these two ephemera packs that hit the shop this month. One is kind of like tickets and things like that. And the other is a lot of florals. And then I have this large number stamp set. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin, I'm going to go ahead and get my pictures mounted onto some background paper. I'm going to just go ahead and start my cluster here. If you've seen any of my work before, you know that I love a good cluster and lots of layering. So I had already picked out my photos, and I'm using my T-square just to make sure that these photos line up really well. I want them to be in a nice straight line, even though, as you'll see, my cluster isn't really even on all sides as it comes together. But I figured if I started with the photos in a straight line, then the rest wouldn't matter. So I'm just kind of eyeballing where I'm putting it and eyeballing the straightness of the papers as I'm putting them together, and I'll have more showing on one side than the other, and it just kind of adds a little bit of the unevenness and the imperfectness to the page, which I think kind of goes along with the photos that I'm using and the silly faces that my daughter is making as I'm trying to get just one picture of her smiling face here. And I chose that yellow color as the final background paper so it would really pop from my white background. And now I'm going to start adding in some more layering pieces. So I decided to go with the floral ephemera pack first. I love layering with florals. It really adds a softness to the edges of the paper, and they're just, great shapes there. So I'm kind of choosing colors that complement the pattern paper that I had already chosen, and I really want the page to be colorful. My photos are pretty monochromatic there with the blue dress and the white door, so it allows me to pull in a lot more color in the different ephemera and the different papers that I'm using. So just going to use my scissors there to trim off leaves. So sometimes embellishments might not work for you as is, but with just a little bit of modifying, it can be exactly what I need it to be there. And it works perfect in that corner. So now that I've chosen all of my floral embellishments, I'm going to go ahead and use this ephemera pack that's kind of like tickets and just great little vintagey pieces there, and go ahead and just start tucking. So you saw in the beginning that I did adhere my layers down, my paper layers, but I haven't adhered any of my ephemera. And when I do my paper layers, it's not adhered to the background yet, and I only put the tape strip or the glue strip kind of toward the middle of the pictures. And this allows me to get my ephemera pieces or anything else kind of tucked into the layers without really committing. So I can build my layers before committing to anything. And so I have that all kind of done, and I'm going to move over to the side where the journaling is. And I am just kind of testing things out there and seeing how I want this layered cluster to come together. And this cluster will be at the bottom of the page below my journaling. And I really want 3 pieces. And sometimes, you just gotta dig and try it out and see what goes together there. So I just test and test until I find the right piece, and I want it to be not too overwhelming, and I don't want the colors to be too crazy because I do have to add my title. I really wanted that yellow ticket, so I kind of worked around that and then found that the heart was the last piece that I needed. Now, moving on to the title. This trick, I don't remember where I learned it, but I find it incredibly helpful when building my titles. I take the alpha stickers and I build the word at the top or on the side of this clear page. And it lets me line up the letters really well, and then I can place them on my layout, and I can kind of make sure that they're really centered, which is usually pretty important to me. And that they fit really well, and since it's on the clear backing, I can see right through it, so I can see exactly where I'm placing it down, and everything just lines up really well at the edge. And I just make sure there's enough overhang, and then I hold the letters down into the paper as I just kind of wiggle that sheet out. You can see right there, and it just lets it line up on the page so nicely right in the middle there. So now that I have my layers all put together, it's time to adhere them. And this is usually my last step of most layouts, or close to the end. And as you can see there, I kind of just hold all my layers down, and I start with toward the top, and then I just go backward. And I'm only putting my glue in the pieces, in the part of the piece that is sticking in, so that it will adhere in. And you'll see why here in a minute. Nothing except for that purple flowers adhere to the page. So on the back, I've decided to use score tape. And so now I have a big chunk of paper and ephemera that's adhered together, and it's a little bit heavy, and this is not inside a page protector. So the score tape helps it hold really nicely to the background. But I want to make sure that it's on there straight, especially because I will be stamping here in a minute. So I brought in my T-square again, which is one of my favorite tools, to make sure it was straight on the page. And then I decided that I needed a little something at the top of my title page, which always happens. I always find a way to add more. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm going to add just a small, I knocked my camera there, just a small little piece of kind of like a leaf vine there, and a word strip. And I'm having a little bit of trouble with my glue there, and end up getting a big mess on there. But I do like the fine line glue for these more delicate embellishments, because it doesn't get sticky around the edges like it does when you have a tape runner. It can go right into those fine little spots to adhere to the page. So I'm going to place that on the top, and it really does help bring the page together. I'm glad that I did make that decision, because it would have looked a little bit bare at the top of that title page without my little embellishments. And now for my final touch, I'm going to use the large number stamps to stamp the numbers down the side of my page. And now you're probably wondering, what is that blue thing that she is rubbing the stamps on afterward? And that's actually just a microfiber cloth that is damp, and I keep it in a 4x6 box, and it helps me clean my stamps afterwards. Super easy. So I'm going to get this final stamp on there, and then that is the end of my layout.